For Moreton. The question is that the motion be agreed to, and I give the call to the member for Riverina.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and I very much take pleasure in speaking on this motion brought to the Parliament for and on behalf by the member for Gippsland, who is unwell, as we've heard. He'll be back tomorrow, don't worry. But it is with great pleasure that I follow the members for O'Connor, Durack and Casey on the coalition side, arguing about the merits of gas. And there was some in the member for Moreton's contribution which I very much agreed with, but he ought to know that under the coalition, in those 9 years of government, 1 in 4 homes had rooftop solar. That was the highest in the world for take-up of rooftop solar. And electricity bills were actually down. We actually made gas affordable. We made power achievable, and indeed the price of gas is up 22.2% under Labor, and that is simply not good enough from a government which purports to put in place a Made in Australia manufacturing policy. Well, industry requires gas and is going to need gas in large volumes to make sure that we do have a future made in Australia. Households are going to require more and more gas, because when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow and the batteries are not sufficient enough with sufficient capacity to be able to store the power, then something's got to give, and we can't have our grid collapsing and failing at a time of importance. Now, just last December, unconventional gas production, including from the Northern Territory's Beetaloo Basin, a vital source of gas, under the legislation passed in this place, was going to require new approvals from the Commonwealth after the government brought forward its plans to expand the so-called water trigger. And of course, once this came up, the Greens couldn't wait to get out and take credit for it. But the expanded trigger was very much opposed by the mining industry, which is very nervous and very worried about what the government is proposing and what it does bring forward. Samantha McCulloch from industry group Australian Energy Producers said the updated water trigger legislation would create, quote, unnecessary duplication, and added that it would offer, another quote, another barrier to unlocking gas supply. She said changes passed by the Senate last night preempted proper process and consultation under the ongoing reform of the Environmental Protection and Biodiversity Act, Conservation Act, the EPBC Act. And we know that power bills have increased by $1,000 more than what the Albanese government promised. We know that 90% of baseload electricity, predominantly coal-fired power stations, is coming to the end of life over the next decade. And we know that gas is going to fill a large part of that shortfall, or should do. And I invite the member for Moreton to pick up the phone to some of his Victorian Labor colleagues, because they want gas taken out of the network holus bolus. Australians are currently paying some of the most expensive electricity prices in the world, up 56 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, the government's 82% renewables target by 2030 requires 4.5 gigawatts of additional large-scale wind and solar every year, and last year less than one-third of this was delivered. And I know, given the fact that all politics is local, even in my local area, Wagga Wagga City Council, in May this year, the Greens councillor Jenny McKinnon had a bit of a try-on. We know that it's local government elections this September. She put a motion to phase out the use of gas in the city, and the Wagga Wagga Distribution Network is a gas distribution pipeline located in southern New South Wales, of course. Pipelines owned by Australian Gas Networks, approximately 690 kilometres in length. It's a big system. But interestingly, her motion, Councillor McKinnon's motion, lapsed due to a lack of a seconder, and that was the appropriate and right way for it to go, because we need more gas in the system. The West Australians got it right when they put a gas reserve in place. We need to be sure that we have gas for exports, gas for domestic supply. And if we're going to have a future made in Australia, then we need more gas, and the government needs to address this.
Thank the